this week's Hungover podcast, brought to you by just us. We don't have a sponsor yet. If you want to sponsor us, stay tuned and take a listen, because we're talking about some important topics this week. This week, we're going to tackle E3. It's back with a vengeance. Is Sony going to present? I mean,
no.
Probably, but maybe not. But they'll have some announcements. They've got to combat something, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
Whatever, we'll get to that in the future in a more engaging and excited way, just like this opening.
Whoa.
My name's Ivan, and over there is
Julien.
my other really energetic partner.
Yes!
He's so energetic, he came in with his name before I finished.
I got too excited, I'm sorry, I ruined it. I almost
That's
did.
We have the 3 E's: energy, engagement, and enthusiasm. That's what E3 stands for.
That is exactly what E3 stands for. If you're not a nerd gamer like us, E3 actually stands for Electronic Entertainment Expo. It is the biggest gaming conference, or traditionally one of the biggest gaming conferences of the year, where very expensive video games are shown off for the first time and advertised to you as a little kid or a person like us who would like to buy video games, because there's only 2 demographics of gamers nowadays.
People whose parents have deep enough pockets to buy things, and people whose pockets are deep enough to buy things.
Yes, or barely deep enough in my case. Anyways, Ivan, I'm really glad that was such an energetic topic introduction. I'm very excited to do this podcast with you. We have some 2 great topics for you guys today. But before we get into those, let's just catch up a little bit, Ivan. You told me, this is a nice reveal. If you watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/hungovergaming, you see that Ivan has a very nice drink there. Diplomatico, perhaps?
It is! My friend, I am still marching gently into that good night with Diplomatico as my sidekick.
Ooh, baby, that is a smooth rum. Again, Diplomatico, please sponsor the podcast. We will drink it every single time we podcast, and also have it in the background here.
There's an empty space. This is just ad wall. This
yes,
is
perfect.
Ad
all for
right
you,
behind me.
all for you to Senor Diplomatico. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. Anyways,
Giorgio,
Ivan,
sponsor the podcast.
Tell me, just before we started recording, Ivan was telling me he has a new project, and that he said that, and I was like, well, tell us about it on the podcast, and this is it. Here we go.
So, as you can see from watching me sip on a very smooth Diplomatico, the lighting in this room is awful, because I didn't want to have my desk in the middle of the room. I wanted to be reasonable. And also, if you can't tell, there's a huge echo when I talk.
Yes. I did my best, but I couldn't get rid of it.
Because this room is basically just an echo chamber. So I want to do 3 things.
Okay.
I want to improve my lighting, get rid of the echo in front of me, and put some art on the back wall.
Well, are you going to be there for that amount of time? That sounds like a really fun project, by the way.
I'm going to be here for 9 months.
Okay.
But my goal is to make whatever soundproofing I make portable.
Oh,
what am I? Oh, it's time to go mobile. It's time to go mobile. So basically, I want to maybe on casters, maybe not, but and I have my my Bosu ball, which means I keep standing on and off of it because it's just too much fun. But basically, I want to do like a half square around my desk with acoustic curtains. Maybe that I can raise and lower, but probably just keep it at one level. Maybe with one side that can fold out so that I can have openness on one side. But basically, I'd create a sound booth in that way. And then at the top, across the top, I'd put a header that could hold my LED bar so that I could have better lighting. And then behind me, what I want to do is I want to build out a frame and then put rock wall inside of it, which is an insulation material that is similar to the fiberglass insulation, but you can use it with your bare hands and it won't kill you. and then wrap that with like a canvas or some sort of breathable material so that the sun can pass through and not just reflect off of it in its own right. Some sort of artwork behind me so that
That's
I would
nice.
have a big piece of art behind me and I wouldn't echo straight into the wall and then have that bounce around everywhere. The only thing that I can't do is really put any like vertical insulation because can't damage the ceiling.
Okay.
And I have a fan, and that's the only way of cooling this room, and it's going to get majorly hot in New Orleans. So
I guess you're lucky tonight. It's not too hot.
no, it's pretty good.
That's really nice.
I've been enjoying the nice breezes. I've got 2 AC units because apparently the central AC in this house died sometime in the last year and a half, and they won't fix it. So
God
you know,
damn.
there's that.
It's not like you're not like Dexter. You don't want the you don't want central AC, or you want central AC. Dexter,
Yes,
of course,
I don't
coming
need
back.
to open. What? How?
Yeah, I watched the teaser trailer for it. Looked Michael C. Hall, great actor. He's never looked better. Looked great in it. I think
Good for
I'm
him.
very excited to watch it, and if it's in the right hands, I hope it's an intriguing story to tell. And
How is it possible that that would
I
be
don't
an
know.
intriguing story to tell?
I don't know. It just seems like he's in a new town, and people seem to know him, and he started a new life for himself. So, and then, I mean, I guess I shouldn't. Oh God. On the podcast, here we go. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
I'm recording a podcast. Do you need me?
Oh, I just wanted to see if you wanted to get dinner with us.
I'm sorry. I'm recording a podcast. I can't.
Okay.
Bye. All right. Damn, don't worry. That's not. Anyways, back in it.
Everything good? You okay?
No, she's having dinner with the neighbors. She asked if I could join, or if I wanted to join. But Vaughn, Darkly Dreaming Dexter, great book. Dexter season 1 through 4, great series. Dexter season 5 through 8, questionable. New Dexter series. I'm very intrigued. Don't want to pay for Showtime. Do they have a streaming service now, or is it just
Showtime? I think they do.
the show? Oh my
A
God!
doorbell for me.
Interruptions galore. Here we go. Anyways, I guess I'll tell you guys what I've been up to in the meantime. God, we are really professional. We timed this podcast perfectly, huh? As for me, I've been getting into some gaming, of course, as usual. You know, I played a little bit of PS5. And hold on, Yvonne, you're back. What'd you get? Mail? Oh, you couldn't.
No, I got some cinnamon pull-aparts here.
Ooh, from your neighbor?
No, from a delivery service that I ordered from.
Nice.
DoorDash, sponsor the podcast.
DoorDash, sponsor the podcast. I've got a sandwich here because I literally got home 10 minutes before we had to record. So I guess
And we chew. So let's break it down for the audience. You guys who tune in, thank you, because we put in a lot of time when we don't have any time to record these.
I know.
Because for whatever reason, we just can't get our stuff together.
We're trying our hardest out here, and thank you so much. We just got 2 new subscribers on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for subscribing to our YouTube channel. We now have 154 subscribers, Vaughn, slowly creeping up to 200. Those look great, man. Those look great. Those are some of my favorite things to eat. Cinnamon covered sugar chewy dough is some of my
And
favorite
it's
stuff.
it's amazing. And you know what? Because it's frozen, it's still super moist.
Ooh.
Tomorrow, this is going to be awful. But right now,
Well, you throw it back in the oven, you give it a second life. You know what I mean? Yvonne, what else have you been up to?
oh man, what haven't I been? I've been working like 50 hours this week. I come home, I'm so exhausted.
I'm sorry, man.
I've been trying to run. I ran once this week.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and run tomorrow. I got hot water finally. Big update, guys.
Holy shit.
2 months into me being kind of a tenant in this apartment, I finally have hot water.
This guy's a regular human being now, living as part of society.
And
That's really
tomorrow, the internet company's gonna come, and hopefully I can get decent internet.
sick. That sounds great, man. I'm applauding you. You're finally like moved in officially at that point.
Yeah, Laura might be moving down soon, within a month.
Oh
So
wow. For
it's
just
like
because she has a job down here?
everything's happening, man. She doesn't have a job down here yet, but we'll get her one. We'll get her one.
Oh, I've been meaning to talk to you. I don't know exactly what Laura does, but my
She's an actor.
okay, yeah, but I didn't know. Is that she's looking for acting roles, or specifically that's all she wants to do?
No, she also is looking into artistic directing.
Okay, because my it's actually she's technically my my
Godmother?
niece. My niece.
Be
She's
difficult.
25. My father had a okay. Here's information about my family. My father had a first marriage before my mom and he were married, and he had a daughter. But that was a while ago, and that daughter had a daughter and two kids, and so I technically have a half niece, I guess. I just call her my cousin because she's like 25. She's my age.
I have a half brother, but I just call him my brother.
I've been meaning to talk to you about it because she works in New York City, and we've all been reconnecting over the past couple of years, and she works. I'm not exactly sure, but I know she's a director of some sort in theater in New York City, so maybe that could be a good connection for Laura. Regardless, though,
now I've got pizza, man.
oh man, Ivan, I've been getting up to some retro gaming here.
Wait, I didn't finish what I was doing, but
All
okay.
right. Well, you're just eating. You're literally just eating. Is this what the people want? I'm trying to fill airtime here.
This is a mukbang. You were talking about your niece.
I didn't. Yeah, okay. We'll keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Here we go. Thank you, because I finally actually played a video game, and I wanted to talk about it on the podcast.
Okay. Tell me about it.
I don't know if I talked about Empire of Sin.
You haven't.
But it came out last year. I've been eyeing it. Me and Empire of Sin have been having a stare down basically the entire time of its existence of when will Ivan buy this game? Because it is both a turn-based combat system like XCOM plus a kind of like empire builder kind of thing. So it's definitely meant for me. It's like where esports tycoon meets XCOM. It's great. I am enjoying, and set in like
LA
gangster era Chicago.
Yeah.
So
oh, it's in Chicago. That's cool.
I'm playing as Salazar Reyes, and he's like a Mexican or Mexican American leader of a gang, and I'm taking over Chicago one town at a time, one neighborhood at a time, baby. It's actually pretty fun. Like I don't fully It's like there are layers of complication that I don't really understand yet. Okay. So I haven't maximized my playstyle, but the combat is kind of fun. Not as many ability kind of things as XCOM, so I say that is a kind of a drawback. The thing about XCOM that every single class feels like it has its own like unique abilities, etc. And there are like classes in Empire of Sin, but it doesn't really feel like there's a big difference between said classes. Like, I have a demolitionist and she can throw bombs, but because it takes there are 2 action points basically per character, just like in XCOM. Because it takes 2 action points to throw a bomb, usually I'm not able to throw a bomb because I need to move someplace and then throw it. So it's kind of like
Oh,
it's
that's okay.
yeah, the maps are a little too big to allow for that kind of um, like nuanced play
I
style.
see.
They're just large enough to be require movement on every round, but small enough that there's not like extended battles. So in XCOM, you'll meet like 2 or 3 enemies at a time, and then
Mm-hmm.
you'll engage in like combat then. And you have that little, like a larger map with smaller skirmishes along the way. In this one, it's you invade a building or fight on the street, so it's sectioned off, cordoned off maps that are just too big to be useful and and too small to be really cool and nuanced. So that's my
That's
issue with it.
okay. You the way you describe the bomb throwing, it's sort of like I don't you might not have played Advance Wars. I don't know if you ever had a Game Boy Advance, but
Mm-mm.
that's what oh man, that's my favorite tactical strategy game or turn-based strategy game. It's not an RPG, which is super cool. I think in my opinion it's one of the coolest games. They made 4 games in the series, I think. Um 2 on DS, 2 on Game Boy Advance. And the ranged units in the game, you can't attack with a ranged unit in the same turn that you move it. So you have to either attack or move it. So I thought that was that
It's
sort of similar. I mean, obviously not the same, but it's similar in that the limitation of the map gives you that sort of artificial limitation, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like maybe as I get more advanced, like advanced tiers in abilities, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty early into the game. I'm only a couple hours in, so as I get more advanced tiers and abilities, perhaps it'll be more intriguing. But currently, XCOM just feels better the way it plays. Like every single gun in XCOM, like for the classes, feels different. But in this one, you have like a boss who is a multi-cog, so he does everything and generally ends up being one of your stronger characters. And then below that, you have different roles, and they're a little bit more tight. But because the boss character has access to all types of guns and a lot of different abilities, it doesn't seem as unique because your squad is only like 4 or 5 people for the first couple of hours at least.
Okay.
So it just it doesn't feel as tight as XCOM does. It doesn't feel as differentiated, and because of that, it can feel a little monotonous between the characters. Basically, each of them just feels like a DPS calculation as opposed to an individual class and role.
Okay. That's wow. So there's a lot more game for you to delve into, I guess it seems. Perhaps
Yeah,
in
it seems
short
like the
rest.
real complications are when it comes to the empire building. So, like, you can open up brothels, casinos, speakeasies, and like breweries, I think.
Okay.
Breweries and speakeasies might be the same thing. But then on each of those, you have different levels, like different levels of word of mouth, ambiance, security, and notoriety mitigation.
And
So like,
this is a turn-based game though.
well, the overall Empire stuff is real time.
Oh,
Um,
more like
kind of,
StarCraft
n- more like a tycoon. Like, remember
tycoon.
when we played Esports Tycoon,
Yeah.
and it's like you have to research before every fight, then you have to train before every
Yeah.
fight, and you also have to do the multimedia broadcast stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's like you walk around. There's not much else to do except for walk into a building, shoot everyone inside the building, ransack it, take it over, or destroy it, and then you go do something else. There's other factions that you can ostensibly like a Civ 6 light,
Yeah.
like have sit downs with and negotiate peace treaties and truces during war and that stuff, but it's not as deep or complex as Civilization. It's not as intriguing as XCOM with your limited spaces. It's there because all over the city you have like 12 or so neighborhoods, and in each of those neighborhoods are like 20 some buildings, each of which can repeat. There's no limited resource other than currency in terms of opening up or changing those buildings. So it's lacking in real depth of thought in terms of a resource economy that is outside of just currency.
I see. Well, it's good to know that you're playing something different other than goddamn XCOM 2.
I mean, that was a really good game.
I'm not saying it wasn't.
I still think probably the Gears of War game came the closest to being really fun in the same way that XCOM 2 is.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like that game. I feel like you're one of the few people that I know that even gave it a chance.
It was really cool. It was really fun. There was
cool.
a lot of unique like kills and actions that were unique to that game in particular. Yeah, it was really cool that way.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome.
I think that's one avenue that I feel like Microsoft needs to go into with those, particularly Halo and Gears of War, those two franchises, because you're making the fucking 5th Gears of War game and Halo Infinite. We'll see what that game leads into, but I don't know.
It would have led into a great E3 conversation.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you that much. Too bad we're not going to have that segue. You know what I mean, Ivan? You know what I mean?
I fully know.
You've been getting into anything else?
That's it for me. I watched Plan B, my movie that came out.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really funny. I highly recommend it.
Can I watch it just... I guess I have a Hulu account, but can I just watch it? I have a Hulu. It'll just have ads, maybe, I guess.
At the beginning.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out for sure.
It's really funny.
Sunday.
I really recommend it. It's like my favorite movie I've ever made.
I'll watch it with Nikki on Sunday then. And we'll do a Plan B totally biased review.
I also saw a trailer for my movie at the Alamo Drafthouse when I went to San Antonio last weekend.
That's gotta be an awesome feeling, man.
It was the coolest, man.
Were you at all part of the editing? I know you're not necessarily part of editing, but
no,
the editing. Do you know anything related to the editing of the trailers? That's like farmed out, right? I feel like in certain cases.
I think it depends. Depends on who's distributing. Realistically, sometimes they have like the distributor has an internal trailer team.
I see.
I feel like Hulu is probably that way.
That's cool. Yeah, because they probably know exactly how long they can make the trailer and then what notes
and what demographic they want to launch it towards. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Well, that's great. I'm glad you had. I mean, I understand you were very busy. But,
and chow down on a slice of pizza while you talk about your week, Julien.
All right. Ivan, I'll tell you, I've had, it was Memorial Day this weekend, so I went down to my neighbor's place and had a good old cookout with them. That was fun. Met some of their friends. Brought some meat. That's just now become my de facto job as a butcher. So I did that. And as of Saturday, I picked up a Sega Saturn from video game my good old reliable store, Video Games NYC. They're really awesome. They gave me a good working Sega Saturn, and I am slowly completing my console collection as or at least the big main consoles that came out within the.
What was the Sega Saturn's contemporary? Because I'm not.
It was.
I'm not super familiar.
It was officially a 32-bit console. It came out. I would have to say it's the PlayStation 1 and the N64 it was competing against.
Those are some big nostalgic titles.
Yeah, and that's why it didn't really do so well in America. The PlayStation 1 pretty much trounced it in graphical capabilities, and the N64 had, the Nintendo big swinging dick from you know, all the big old franchises coming out on that, as well as the multiplayer facets that Nintendo was trying to push super hard with Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, Super Smash Brothers, all those cool games. And I picked up, and we got Nikki's. She has a Sega Genesis. We got that working, so now we can play fucking Sonic Adventure, or not Sonic Adventure, Sonic the Hedgehog. What a great game! I'm slowly realizing that Sonic is just a really shitty franchise. Even I hate to say it, because I played a lot of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle when I was a kid. That's my favorite Sonic game. I played it on stream for my first retro stream last night, Thursday night. I stream retro games on Thursday nights now. I played some GameCube games. I played F-Zero GX and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I was definitely realizing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle is a really bad game. So that's all I need to say on Sonic. I will still play this new Sonic game that was announced, but I'm not very excited for it. I'll tell you how much. But I have to.
Was
I want to
say sorry. Was the Sega Saturn the first Sega system?
No,
or was the Genesis the first one?
No, Genesis competed with the SNES. They had the Sega Master System, which was competing with the NES. I'm not sure if they had a Sega. I think there was like Sega CD at some point. I just know in the line of things competing with Nintendo's main consoles, we'll roll out the Virtual Boy and the handheld consoles, because they did compete in that realm as well. There were Sega handheld systems, but they had Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, and then Sega Dreamcast. Those are the 4 big ones that they had. I picked up a Sega Saturn. It is a blind spot for me in gaming, and I assume it's a blind spot for a lot of people in gaming, because, or at least Americans anyways, because it wasn't very popular here. And even if you do happen to come across one, it's not too terribly difficult to find one if you have a local game store. The console itself's not very expensive, but the games have become incredibly expensive. There are some really rare games for Sega Saturn that go upwards of like $500 on eBay. So I was like, wow, I can't even afford the basic ass games here. So I did some research, and there's this company called Terra Onion that provides it's called Mode, a Mode mod. So it's a physical mod for your Sega Saturn. Mode stands for multi-optical disc drive emulator. So you physically take out the disk drive and replace it with this, and then you can plug in an SSD or a USB thumb drive or an SD card, or like a variation of 2 of those, because the way they had to fit it in there, if you plug in the USB thumb drive, it blocks the SSD slot. So it's like a variation of 2 of those that you can plug in there. So I'm gonna go with an SSD and maybe an SD card. And so I got the mod. I am going to mod it on my stream, and the way and it just runs like ROMs or they're not .isos for Sega Saturn. They're actually bin and what is it, CQ files, bin and Q files. It's a weird format. I don't know. The Q file runs all the bin files, and then it'll run the game, I guess. And so I've gone from not being able to afford any of the games to getting all of the games. So I'm going to try to fill up that. I did some research. This is like the era of when I assume the most famous Sega Saturn game I would have to say is probably Panzer Dragoon. You've probably heard of this game.
I have.
It's been re-released on the Xbox. I guess somehow they got the rights to that game, or it was remade or something like that. And so it's on Xbox. That's pretty cool. But Panzer Dragoon 2, and then the rarest game, which is not like, this is the most expensive game on Sega Saturn, is Panzer Dragoon Saga. It's a 4-disc it's a 4-disc RPG within the
Wow.
Panzer Dragoon series. It's ridiculous. So the Sega Saturn is a weird system because they ported a lot of arcade games to it, which I'm really into. Like, two of my favorite genres of arcade games, there's like so many games on Sega Saturns. The shoot 'em ups, like, with the little airplane and you shoot a lot of bullets. There's like probably a million of those games on Sega Saturn, and from arcade ports. One of which is like the spiritual successor to Ikaruga, which has become pretty popular nowadays. It's on Steam also, which is great. It's called Radiant Silvergun. Very excited to play that. And then it also has some really great fighting games from the arcade era, like X-Men Children of the Atom. It's got Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. So I'm really excited to play those games. Got King of Fighters on there. Got the first Dead or Alive. It's got Darkstalker. Well, it was called Darkstalkers on PlayStation. It's called Vampire Hunter on Sega Saturn. So I'm pretty excited for those games. And then it has like a few pretty rare RPGs. Pretty excited to play them. So I don't know. I'm really excited about playing this and hooking it up. I'm currently waiting for, like, I could install this mod right now, but another company has printed out a 3D printed a little bracket for it, so it makes it really easy to exchange your hard drive if you want to take it out and install firmware or install more games on your Sega Saturn. So I'm just waiting for that to come, and then I'm going balls deep into the Sega Saturn library. You can't fucking wait. It's gonna be sick. And then so I'm really excited for all this.
That is a really cool transition into retro gaming.
Yeah, I know. And this mod happens to also work on the same exact PCB board that you install, happens to work on the Sega Dreamcast too, so I could potentially just use it there too. So I'm actually pretty excited for that. Otherwise, from that Yvonne, I got really drunk on Memorial Day drinking some Diplomatico, so I'll have know we're still vying for that sponsorship. Please sponsor us. We can't wait. Vaughn.
You know what else is heavily sponsored?
What is that, Yvonne?
In that it is an entire hour dedicated to, or half hour, depending on who it is, dedicated to just their brand.
What is this?
What was I talking about? It's E3 presentations, obviously, Julien.
Hey, this guy. We're very excited for E3 this year. Or I'm very
excited that we didn't even prepare predictions. We're going to do them right here on the fly.
We didn't necessarily have to have a prediction show. We usually do one. Last year we didn't because E3 was canceled. But this is the biggest geeking out session that you'll have from us all year. Yvonne, it's going to be an entirely digital show this year. So everyone's taking Nintendo's cue on this. And it seems to be working out, I guess, in some people's favor. It's significantly truncated because Sony has decided that it doesn't care about E3, and I believe a couple of other conferences, such as the Bethesda conference and the Xbox conference, have been combined because Xbox or Microsoft now owns Bethesda software, which is pretty cool. But there's still a lot of conferences to be held, potentially announcing a lot of games. Yvonne, considering a lot of games have been delayed because of COVID, complicating everything, not just, politics and things, but also complicating the production line of video games. Do you think this year's gonna be crazier, or do you think next year's gonna be crazier in terms of video game releases?
I still think
Just based on
next year is going to be crazier. I think there's going to be a lot of announcements right now, and what they're going to do is drive hype. To get people reinvigorated. This is a time of infinite pessimism and optimism equally. So I feel like lots of companies are going to try and drive up their stonks by getting people excited.
Invest now. See the benefits later after June 15th. Yeah,
this is kind of the thing that I hope like Devolver Digital plays off of, like Bitcoin cryptocurrency hype and the GameStop stuff. It's like I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for these companies to do some real fan servicey, jokey kind of ways of interacting with the audience at the same time as promoting some of the most anticipated games that they can really start talking about. I think most exciting for me will be to see a couple of things from the Microsoft conference, if you want to start there.
Let's start there. I think they have the most to prove right now, and considering Microsoft's been utilizing their deep wallet to just buy up every company under the sun, and they also have put forward a really fantastic way to access their games in Xbox Game Pass, and they've sort of streamlined everything, and they have this powerhouse of a console that you can purchase, or you can buy their games on PC. So they have a lot of places in which you can buy these games, or and potentially stream them now. I think they have a streaming service via that they're at least investing in.
And it was actually a very smart way of integrating everything onto that service, because due to COVID restrictions of availability of Xboxes or gaming graphics cards, like if you don't have one, maybe you can get the other. There's a lot more opportunity to have availability to getting to these games. And I think that's what we might see some of in this E3 presentation. Like, not something I'm excited about, but for instance, if Microsoft Flight Simulator, which has been a CPU dominant PC title, it's restricted. It's a game that gets restricted by the CPU on computers, so it would be hard for an Xbox to be able to run it. But they're gonna maybe tease a port of that, or show some more about that they've already announced is kind of in the works.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I have to say that I purchased a PS5, right? So, and I've had a pretty powerful PC for a while. I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the PlayStation. I mean, I know the Xbox Series X is a different console, but typically Xbox and PlayStation release similar level hardware. And so I'm granted there's no games to play on it, but or at least PlayStation 5's exclusives except for Returnal, and obviously that's going to change later on this year. Not that I know of this year actually, which is strange. That's something to talk about, but I'm pretty impressed with the level of snappiness that the hard drive the SSD provides, the graphical fidelity that I'm getting out of these games, the frame rates, which is probably the biggest update to a lot of the console gamers that they'll see immediately, is just frame rate is so much more smoother on PlayStation 5. And then on top of that, I really like the controller coming from PlayStation. I know, again, we were talking about Xbox, but I just, that's my only frame of reference. I don't have an Xbox Series X to talk about, but I hear it's really great. it's a really great console, and if it's going to be able to play all of these games that are going to be announced, I hope they announce plenty of games for Xbox. I think it's a really great option for people to play some of these games coming up that are going at a really great frame rate and resolution. So I'm looking forward to the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, but I have no idea what to expect, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I'm looking for is an update on Halo Infinite.
Yeah, we need something from them.
I would really like to see an improvement from the previous gameplay that they showed off, the teasers, kind of things that they've shown off about the game.
Yeah.
I still don't fully understand what a sandbox Halo game means.
You know,
And
all
how-
those Halo NPCs, they're going to be giving you quests that you can just fetch quests that you can just go get. things
Yeah,
for them.
I don't.
It's going to be great.
I don't understand how this is going to be markedly different than a Destiny kind of game. And the whole point of Halo is you want to play the hero. You know, like there's going to be the fetch quest system like of other games without the
Ideally
like
not.
cheesy kind of stuff that you have in like a Gearbox game, for instance. Like at least it's stylized, you know? So now you're going to be Master Chief in not a streamlined, hyper focused mission. I don't know. I don't fully understand the need for it. I think that it feels like just a capitalization on a well-known franchise, but like we said with the Gears thing, right? It was interesting for Gears to be taken in a different direction, and it actually provided a unique take on a genre that gets pretty stale. Like a turn-based combat system is pretty stale unless you have unique abilities and kind of things that break up just, I have a 60% to shoot this guy. Oh, I click. Okay, that's what's happening. So I'm going to be interested to see, but it feels like there's a big difference between like an RTS Halo Wars style game that kind of broke that, and it's just basically a skinned RTS. Every RTS is basically a skinned RTS, right? It's basically a StarCraft clone, but I'm both intrigued and really excited to see what it is, but also I hold the reservations that I didn't buy I haven't bought the last two iterations of the Xbox.
Yeah.
So I don't know that this is going to be a drop, but I did buy the Master Chief Collection.
Well, the thing is, Vaughn, you don't need to buy an Xbox anymore because you have a personal computer at home, which I think is probably the best thing that they've done in a while, although it does, I think, in my opinion, hinder Xbox sales. But that's something that I assume factored in because they also sell Windows, PCs. So I think they're probably making their money back in some ways. They probably don't even care about the Xbox division of Microsoft's revenue. The company Microsoft is probably so small that it doesn't even matter to them, but they seem to be investing a lot of money as of recently. So
I don't think it's that small. I still think it's a chunk of the operations.
Yeah, but it's not
a company that's that big. If it's like 15% of the operational budget, that's still a huge chunk of change,
Yeah, they
like
just spent
Sennheiser,
$7.6 billion on Bethesda. So yeah, you're right.
Sennheiser just sold their like consumer audio division, their consumer headphone division.
Yeah,
because it wasn't making enough money for them. Sennheiser, obviously a smaller company than Microsoft, but it was synonymous with consumer headphones. So I don't think that even 15% of a large company is a very small amount.
That's
Not
true.
that it is. I don't actually know what the percentage is, but
that's a good point.
even a small percent of cost or revenue at Microsoft is a huge chunk of change.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm like I said, I have no idea what's gonna come out of this conference. I think they have the most. I think they probably have. They might have the most airtime. We'll see. Related to, I guess these are gonna be this one's gonna be a live stream. So unlike the Nintendo Direct, which is a pre-recorded thing that Nintendo completely controls because they can edit it, this is gonna be a live stream. So that's interesting to know.
Do you think it's going to have an integration of Microsoft Teams?
I don't know what that is. What do you mean?
So Microsoft Teams is Microsoft's proprietary version of like Zoom.
Oh, I don't know.
So I would say that they're going to product integrate Microsoft Teams into this and use that as like a virtual, because in Microsoft Teams you can do things like a virtual audience and different things.
That would be smart.
I just have a feeling that this is going to be an opportunity for them to show off Microsoft Teams. If we were doing a prediction prediction pod,
That's your prediction.
One of my predictions would be there would be an integration of Microsoft Teams into the live stream presentation.
That would be pretty cool. It looks like, according to Polygon, they're going to at least the known ways you can watch this. You're going to be able to watch it on Xbox's Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook channels as of now. They might announce, for instance, that they're going to integrate that sort of way of viewing.
I think it's going to be the presenters talking to each other or talking to somebody off, like if they don't interview right there. I think there will be an integration of Microsoft Teams, or they'll have like a select number of viewers that will be in the corner or something for like a gameplay footage presentation.
Yeah, this is...
And if it's not, then this is a wasted opportunity of synergy and product integration.
This would have been a really great opportunity for VR sort of to take off, I think, in my opinion. If they had been able to plan, like, just record this or live stream it from a stage, which they probably would have done if there wasn't a pandemic, and they had put 3D cameras in there, for instance, that would have been really cool if you could just access that through your VR headset and pay, I don't know, whatever the ticket price would have been just to watch it, just to access it and be in the audience. I think that would be a really great integration of VR that I think that very few companies are taking advantage of. I understand it's probably a very expensive thing to do, but I think that would be a really great way to do this, especially during this year.
Imagine if you had to sell seats, but you can still get the awkward seat where you're looking at the screen, but it's not that great.
Well, hey, it's cheaper, right? It would be cheaper. You could purchase that seat. I don't know. That's something to think about. You're right behind the column.
Yeah, you have a 3/4 view.
Yeah, that's the true VR experience. So I think, aside from Xbox, which we have I don't think we can really properly predict it. I guess, look, honestly, I don't really care about Bethesda games anymore. I think this is kind of blasphemous. I haven't really been excited for anything coming out of Bethesda since they announced Fallout 4. Then I played Fallout 4 and I wasn't really excited about it. So, I beat that game too. So that was a long time ago.
I'm with you, and I didn't beat that game.
I don't really care.
I think the most excited thing, yeah,
is Skyrim 6 or what? Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield. What the hell are those games? I don't think Bethesda has a lot to prove with those games, considering Fallout 4 sucked, in my opinion. Fallout 76 is what the hell was that? Fell
flat on its ass.
And I mean, I hear Doom is really great, but it's just not for me. And then nothing else that Bethesda makes is really for me personally. I don't really care about this Deathloop game that's coming out, but I hear a lot of people are excited for it. So Doesn't really look that
I
interesting.
am kind of excited to understand what this Starfield game is.
Yeah,
If it's kind of like Mass Effect-y kind of like space
maybe.
sci-fi fantasy epic kind of thing, I would be kind of happy with it, you know.
Well,
I would be
I
happy
just
with
feel
a
like
Skyrim in space kind of thing.
I mean, I just feel like Bethesda has a lot to prove, right? They put out they sort of pretty much defined Western RPGs for a little bit, right? They had Fallout 3 and Skyrim and Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, and they sort of just set the bar super fucking high, right? And those games were great. I really loved those games. But they haven't really put out anything interesting in that space since then, right?
I
They've
think The
been
Witcher
right.
took the
They've
throne.
been trounced by CD Projekt Red, which is currently having a lot of problems right now. But a company that does CD Projekt Red, I think, is much smaller than Bethesda, has sort of taken the limelight from them with Witcher 3, and I think did it at least in the state that Witcher 3 is now. Again, I think that that's sort of been forgotten that Witcher 3 did not release in the best of states. But I think Witcher 3 is much better than Skyrim. In my opinion, I know Skyrim's great, but Witcher 3 is so much more well realized. There's so many more story paths and much more of an interesting story in my opinion. So I think that game was great. But we'll see what Bethesda has to offer. Do any of the other? I think also Nintendo has a lot to prove as well, because I understand the Switch is selling pretty much better than Xboxes and PlayStations right now, and somehow Nintendo is still putting them out, even though there's a chip shortage right now for everything, and you can still find them, I think, relatively well. I think they have a lot to prove as well, right? They're coming up on the fourth year of the Nintendo Switch, if I'm not mistaken, and this is the second console in a row that they've released halfway through a console generation that is significantly less powerful than its competitors, even though they're not trying to compete with them. But they're still getting certain games on Switch, like Witcher 3, even though that was from last gen. Like, Nintendo is in a weird space right now. Their console is really fantastic. I love the Nintendo Switch, but it's sort of waning. It's showing its age right now. It's coming up on its fourth year, like I said, and we still have a lot of Nintendo franchises to come out, I think, on it. Do you have any thoughts on Nintendo, or do you want to just skip over
We've
everyone
been waiting
else?
for the Nintendo Switch Pro for how many? 3 years now?
Since it came out.
Yeah, I think that I think that Nintendo has always zigged to everyone's zag, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when we talk about Microsoft and Xbox, Microsoft can take huge hits in Xbox to reclaim kind of prestige, etc., in other avenues, and they can use Xbox Game Pass, like you alluded to sell PCs as a way to play games,
Yeah.
especially for like college students where you need to compete against people who are going to buy Macs. Well, you can't get Xbox Game Pass really that way, so go the other way. Um, so I think Nintendo is a company that's always been cautious of their bottom line, but it would be surprising to me if we got anything close to a console announcement or anything like that in terms of new hardware, just because of the position that they're in, that for the next year and a half it's probably going to be impossible to manufacture at scale any kind of console.
Exactly. We'll see how that works out, because they have announced that they only have a 40-minute presentation a 40-minute Nintendo Direct. So you have to figure if they were to announce a console, a new iteration of the Switch, you would want to take up at least 10 minutes of that time talking about it, right? So that only leaves 30 minutes for games, and I would assume Nintendo has like a really tight 40 minutes, as their Nintendo Directs usually are. They have like beat after beat. It's like really exciting to watch. I actually really like the Nintendo Directs because they edited them well. So they just have something for everyone, and they don't stick on something games too long, and they're always showing something new, and so it's just really exciting to watch them. So I doubt that they're going to announce a console, because I think that would slow everything down, the whole pace of the presentation, which is really important in whatever the E3 is.
Do you think we're going to get Animal Crossing or Zelda updates?
Animal Crossing, I think they're done with. I think they planned a whole year of content for that, and then they're just gonna let it cycle. Zelda, I think because it's a 35th anniversary, if they're going to announce anything, they're either just gonna completely ignore Zelda's 35th anniversary and discuss Breath of the Wild 2 during this direct, or they're going to have a separate 35th anniversary direct where they're going to talk a lot about Breath of the Wild 2 and whatever else they're doing for Zelda.
Why does Breath of the Wild get a sequel?
Why does it get a sequel? I don't know, because they wanted to. They thought that there was more story to tell there. I don't know.
But isn't it unusual for a Zelda title? Isn't this the first time it's a direct sequel to a Zelda title?
I don't think it's the first time. I believe there were some Zelda games on the DS that were actual sequels. That I think Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass are actual sequels. I'm not saying that they are. And then there were,
but they're not like 2.
Yeah, it's not 2. And then they haven't released an actual title for this game.
Okay,
so it's definitely within the same storyline. But I don't know. I only saw the trailer, dude. I don't know what's going on. It's exciting for me. I definitely want to play that game. I want to learn a lot about it. But when they're ready to show it, they'll show it. I think that I don't think they're going to talk about Zelda's 35th anniversary during this event at all. I think that you will get a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer or a little bit. I think they pretty much have to talk about that game in some avenue. It'll probably be at the end of the presentation, and that's it. It'll be maybe like a teaser or like more information during the 35th anniversary direct coming in September or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of excited about that. I know we're running a little long on the tooth here because we got so excited about Bethesda. I don't know why. But do you want to talk about any other companies, or do you want to talk about Tokyo Olympics, or do you want to leave that for another podcast?
We can talk more about E3 and talk about the Tokyo Olympics a little later. You think Mario Golf's gonna be there?
No, because that's a really good question. They talked a lot. They had a direct for Mario Golf. Did you watch? Or not a direct, it was like a trailer for it. I personally think you should go watch it. That game looks so cool. It's coming out this month.
I'm definitely going to buy it. Yeah.
It's coming out this month on the 25th, I believe. I'm very excited for it. I think it's too close to E3, too close after E3. It's just a week or maybe a week and a half after Nintendo's presentation. I don't think it's worth talking about it for them unless they have nothing else to talk about. They might have it in a... I think where they're going to have it is the Nintendo does a Treehouse, they call it Nintendo Treehouse presentation. They're going to have a 3-hour block of them demoing their games. where they usually have these two people who have become the face of their YouTube channel. Forget their names. They do Let's Play on their YouTube channel now, I think, and they unbox things. It's a weird thing. But they usually have them there at Nintendo Treehouse, so I think they'll probably talk about it then and show that game off there because it's very imminent to release. I don't think they'll have it in the Direct, though. But they might announce something else. We'll see. I wanted to briefly talk about Capcom. Capcom has been it's been one of my favorite companies for so long. They're going to probably talk about some Resident Evil shit. I don't like Resident Evil's really great, I think, but it's like oversaturated at this point after the release of Resident Evil 8. I think we need to ease off on Resident Evil games, but they're gonna talk about Resident Evil 4 and VR and whatever else they have. I would like, my dream for Capcom is to come out with Street Fighter 6 and talk about that. I really want them to talk about, or any fighting game really. I love Capcom fighting games, so if they could talk about Street Fighter 6 in some respect, that would be so exciting to me.
How would you feel if both of those ideas were combined
Resident
and they
Evil
had
fighting.
a Street Fighter VR?
Whoa! Oh, did they? No, that was Tekken. I was playing a game. You can play Tekken 7 in VR. It's silly. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's cool that they added like a tiny mode where you can play in VR. I think they might have they have some like very small interactive thing that you can do with Street Fighter in VR, if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty, like, you can throw a Hadoken. It's pretty weird. It's so dumb.
I'm ready for the fighting game to go into VR.
It's time.
And finally master that realm. I think we can get close to there. I feel like the Switch handholds are just perfect enough.
They're great.
The Joy-Cons are perfect.
So many things are gonna break. So many people are gonna die or get really hurt. It's not a good idea.
I just really feel like it's time to start evolving into that space.
That would be crazy. I would definitely invest.
What if it was AR Street Fighter, not VR, but it was the room that you're in, so you saw your surroundings, but you were also fighting.
People would find
Street
a way
Fighter
to hurt themselves, but I mean, I would love it. It would be great.
Or if the objects that were in the room, like a AR WWF style fighting game, where like if you had chairs or something, they became objects that you could pick up and throw.
That would be crazy.
And they would break, and they would be there, but they would be like a ghost version of themselves. So then after you threw it the first time, you couldn't use it again as a weapon in the thing.
You know, the only company that can do this is Microsoft, Yvonne. Maybe we should be all buying Xboxes and their AR headsets.
I'm just saying, a Capcom AR, some Hadoukens, some throne chairs.
You never.
I think it's a great idea, and I'm ready to lead the team. Both Capcom and Microsoft, just view this as my application.
Thank you, Capcom. You can have the idea, but only if you put Yvonne as the head of the team. That is it.
TM, copyright.
Do you have any hopes for Square Enix? Perhaps Kingdom Hearts Yvonne edition? Whatever that would be.
That would be just not having another Kingdom Hearts. They're not my games. I don't really care. I like the Final Fantasy series. I don't play it as enough to be a Square Enix fanboy.
By the way, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Should have told me.
I feel like you should have known, buddy. God, this guy.
I don't even have my PS4 with me.
So it doesn't matter. It's a great game. I have high hopes for Square Enix releasing some sort of information about Final Fantasy 16. But otherwise, I couldn't care less about a single thing they're doing unless it's bringing back
Haven't you
some
been
old
disappointed?
game.
But haven't you been disappointed by Final Fantasy
Yes, of course
since
I
Final
have.
Fantasy
Of
VII?
course I have, but they brought me back with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's amazing. And they've been publishing some weird things, and I'm excited either way. I've been so disappointed. Final Fantasy 15 I've got a weird place in my heart for. It's a weird game. Am I glad
You
it
love
existed?
streaming it.
I loved streaming it. It was great. It was fun. It's just not exact. It's not all there. If they can make a really well complete package with Final Fantasy 16, I will be over the moon and very happy that they did it. But my whole thing with the Final Fantasy 7 remake saga, as you will, if you will, is as long as it's all playable in one place when it's all said and done, I'll be happy. You know, in 10 years when it's over, when they finally made the last part of it, as long as I can play it all in one place, I'll be happy. If I have to bring out 5 different consoles, the PS5 is already way too big. If I have to break out 5 different consoles in order to play through the whole thing, I'll be pretty mad. That's all I gotta say. But Yvonne, I think
The last thing.
Oh, sorry.
Last thing. Is there any chance that we're gonna get a backwards compatible version of Metal Gear Solid 4?
Oh no. No, that ship
Like-
has sailed, buddy. That's so long. It's over. Metal Gear's over. It's over. I don't think it's ever coming back. It's sad, but it's true, I think. I think they've left it in the past. Konami doesn't make video games anymore, and they own it.
I fucking that's
the
the most
saddest.
disappointing thing.
Do you what do you think do you think this is my question is
I
sorry.
almost bought a PS3 just to buy Metal Gear Solid.
It's great.
4.
It's fantastic. You should do it. I think the PS3 is a really great console, and you can still buy games for it. Go check it out. I like it a lot. My question was, do you think this is the format for E3 going forward, or how many years do you think they're going to do this?
No, I think it'll depend on the company. I think the smaller ones will go more in this digital format, especially if you can do a prepackaged thing and they'll look at the numbers from this year and they'll look at Nintendo Directs and see how great those are. I mean, Nintendo has its own built-in... It's a balance, right? Nintendo has a built-in custom fan base because it's been around so long. It has such
Nintendo is
die-hard fans that people will stop what they're doing to pay attention to Nintendo. At the same time, I really don't think Nintendo needs Nintendo Directs because I think if they just announce a game, people will still buy it just because it's probably a series that they love. So it's like a weird thing. Both the other company, like smaller companies, I can see them going full digital. I can also see them reversing course and going big fanfare kind of. If you have something that can go viral from what you're making, if it can become a TikTok clip, if it can become a GIF on Twitter that is relatable and is interesting and draws traffic to your website, your product, etc., then do the live show. And there's always an element of, will they fuck up, won't they? Which I think is in and of itself a draw. But, you know, I think E3 went through its waxing and waning, right? So it grew, and then it got cut off, and then it's grown again, and then I think it's gotten cut off. And so I think it'll go through, I think, a little bit more trimming down next year before somebody comes out that isn't Xbox with a huge ass presentation. Because the thing is, it's not it's a thing where if some companies are able to draw attention to themselves by having a live presentation, by having that draw, then other companies have to figure out if they're matching it or not.
Uh-huh.
I think the interesting thing is because a lot of us are watching these presentations at home anyway, to a lot of people, there's no difference between a
Exactly.
live event and the digital pre-recorded event.
I think so
So
too.
in that regard, it's like it's a tight. I feel like it's a tighter margin of error. In order to really be effective as a live presentation, you have to have major satisfaction.
And also,
Um,
not to mention, they figured out ways to send, the media people, the media folk who will be reporting on E3, such as your IGNs and whatnot. They've figured out ways to send um, timed demos to, or you know, vertical slice demos, whatever it is, to those people via, I think the program's called Parsec, which is it's a way of people connecting computers, being able to play the game on someone else's computer, basically virtually. That's how
yeah,
they're sending
like
it.
a virtual machine
Yeah.
plugin thing, like Stadia.
So
Um,
I think
what do you think about that same question? I mean, you've obviously now gone into that media
right.
reporters don't need to go to an event; they can get hands-on experience that is equal to from their couch.
Yeah, I mean, I think this sort of almost ties into a larger conversation of whether or not people are going to actually go back to work. You know what I mean? In a way, it ties into that. I think you've seen a lot of backlash, um, and I guess we shouldn't really get into this conversation, but I think I've seen a lot of media reports, particularly in the service industry, that it's really difficult to get people rehired, such as servers and cooks and things like that. And even in office spaces, they're having trouble getting people back into the office in some industries. So I think that you'll probably see E3 come back in some live format, but not next year. I don't think it's gonna happen next year. Personally, I think that these companies also probably have, they've cut expenses and they're still reaching the same audience, right? Clearly, clearly this is way cheaper than renting a space at the E3 convention center. They don't have to hire nearly as many people. Surely there's going to be a lot of people behind the scenes making sure this stream goes smoothly for everyone, but they probably aren't hiring nearly as many people. They don't have to have like huge sets. Usually Nintendo has a large booth where they've custom made new, like a Breath of the Wild fucking wonderland where you walk through and shit like that, and they're selling, I don't know, like trinkets and whatever around the convention center. They don't have to hire all of that staff, cut off all the physical prop stuff, and now it's all digital. I think that you'll see that E3 is probably going to come back, but in a much smaller format. I don't think that you'll see it nearly as big as it ever was. And
I
also, a
think
lot of these companies probably won't.
two things in response
Yeah,
to that is that one, you will never be more exciting to somebody than getting them something tangible like a trinket
that's
from an
true. I
E3.
agree.
And you might be able to get lifelong fans of that product. For instance, when they had the grand reveal of the Xbox or the Xbox 360 and they brought all those people to the desert and you had like and you got some special things,
Or the thing where they
that is
shot
an event.
the fucking video, Mass Effect into space, and they had the fans go find. Did you hear about that? I think for the
No.
release of either Mass Effect 3 or Mass Effect 1, or maybe it was Mass Effect 2, I think they launched copies of Mass Effect into space, and it came back down like in a weather balloon, and then it would just come back down, and they They set out people to go find it. Like,
It's
fell into private
hilarious.
property, and there was a whole fucking controversy. It's pretty funny. No, doing stuff like
But
that is
I
awesome.
think the
Don't get me
the
wrong.
other thing is, as a person who works in the arts and entertainment industry, I think it's massively important to keep the those people employed.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, and I think that they provide a level of entertainment to the public where if you want that to be part of any like at Christmas and others and other points of the year, you need to give arts and entertainment workers yearly work, and having these big presentation gigs is important to that. And I think it is a benefit to everybody to have tangible events to go to. I think if anything this year has proven that if everything stays digital, we go fucking insane. So support local artists, entertainment industry, go see theater, go to live events when it becomes safe, and get vaccinated so that
Go eat
you
at
can be safe
restaurants.
with everybody else. And I think that that's going to be really important. You're going to be experiencing things that are unique, and that's I think the bigger draw, and that's what should be the biggest draw.
Yeah, I definitely always dreamed of going to E3 as a kid. I obviously now, I mean, last year excluded, right? Let's assume that it's safe to go to E3. I probably wouldn't go if I had the opportunity. That I don't know. Just knowing from my experience at New York Comic Con, I know it's not. These large conventions are kind of not that fun as an adult. It would be amazing as a kid. I always, since I heard about E3 when I was a kid, I have watched it every year since. I can't remember the first one I watched, but it's always an exciting time of year for me. I obviously there's nostalgia of getting off of school or whatever, but also this is the time of year where E3 is. I think that it's really necessary to have this type of event for video gaming, in order to get people excited. I don't think you can have these small. I don't think you could, for instance, like break up all these conferences and have them at different times during the year, or these showcases. I think that would detract from any sort of announcement or any sort of poll that they could potentially garner, and it would not. It would sort of dilute like the excitement. You know what I mean? In a way,
Yeah.
which is part of the fun of being a gamer, right? This is sort of a community thing in a way. People just getting excited now that you can react to things or whatever. It's even more exciting to watch someone react in some ways than it is to actually react yourself. So there's a lot of fun stuff around it that you get, and it's one of my favorite things as a gamer to watch. So I love E3, and I hope it doesn't go away, and I hope it comes back. I agree that all these people need jobs who do event sort of work, and it sucks that they've been out of work for over a year now. So you're right, man. I think gaming. I think gaming still needs E3 or some event. Doesn't have to be E3. It could be like whatever the next biggest gaming event is, but I think they all need to be in one place so you can get everyone's attention on it, so it can be cool, for it to be impactful. That's it, Yvonne. That's all we got for you for this episode of Hungover Gaming's Hungover Podcast. That's us. I hope you guys enjoyed our podcast. If you want to support us, all you got to do is hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or, reach out to us via Twitter, or if you have any questions, gaminghungover@gmail.com. We'll be happy to discuss your answers, or our answers to your question. That's something I've always dreamed about, is having someone Or literally anyone. Just write us a question. I've been watching. I don't know if you know who David Jaffe is, Ivan.
Yeah.
I've been watching his Twitch show. He takes live calls from his, I think, via Discord. It's pretty cool. Sometimes it just fizzles out, but sometimes it leads to a really interesting conversation. So if we could have anyone give us a question, please, that would be great. That's something that I've always wanted for our podcast. But anyways, thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Goodbye.
Bye.